Welcome to Jacksonville on the second day of 2012. Today, Florida and Ohio State meet almost 4 years to the day after they faced off for the national championship. January 8th, 2007, Florida defeated Ohio State. Urban Meyer's Gators were #1 in the nation. But much has changed for Florida, Meyer, and Ohio State. The Buckeyes are coming off a year unlike any other.
He and I talked about the state of our program, and it's at that time that he decided to resign.
I can't tell you how humbled and honored I am to stand here as the head coach at The Ohio State University.
Miller throws it up deep right side, touchdown Ohio State!
Michigan finally beats Ohio State!
Our objective is simple: to make the state of Ohio proud. Recruit student athletes will win in the classroom and win on the field.
Today, Luke Fickell is at the helm of the Buckeyes one more time, facing Meyer's old Florida team. Elite programs, disappointing seasons. One will finish strong today. Welcome to the TaxSlayer.com Gator Bowl. Florida and Ohio State both come in at 6-6 on the season. A loss for Florida would be their first losing record since 1979, and they're determined to avoid that in their home state today. And here come the Florida Gators. Hi, everybody. Mike Patrick, Ed Cunningham. It's great to have you with us. Florida comes into this game 6-6. It's first under Will Muschamp. They made the transition from the spread offense to a pro style, and it's still a work in progress.
Yeah, it didn't go quite as planned for Florida. They got much better on defense, as you would expect under Will Muschamp and his defensive background. But a lot of that had to do with injuries, especially at quarterback. John Brantley, who was playing sensationally against Alabama before he suffered an ankle sprain, came out of that game and was out in the last game against Florida State with a head injury. But also, Randy and Demps, two of the fastest guys in all of college football, both battled ankle injuries. With these three guys healthy, I would expect this offense will be a little better than the 102nd ranking that they had at the end of the regular season.
Ohio State comes into this game really in the same boat as the Gators. They need to avoid a loss to fall to 6-7, and they've got to do it with a freshman quarterback.
And Braxton Miller was a guy that they had to turn to after a terrible loss to Miami after the 4th game of the season. And he saved his best for last. He played very well on a big stage against Michigan. Still a bit of a work in progress in the throwing game. But when he gets outside of the pocket, very accurate. And in 3 of his last 4 ball games, he ran for over 100 yards. That's something Florida will have to key on this afternoon.
Very nice day down on the sidelines, sunny and bright. Janine Edwards will be working down there for us.
Well, Mike,
let's check in with her right now.
Mike, as you mentioned, Luke Fickell just led his team to the field for the last time as the head coach of the Buckeyes. And he told me it's been a very trying season. He said, I found out what true pressure is. He said, and I learned I can handle just about anything. Now, moments ago in the locker room, he told his team, guys, this is not about me. It's not about the seniors. This is about having pride in one another and not letting the guy next to you down. And Mike, Fickell's been a great example for them to follow.
Boy, he sure has, Janine. He has done it with class, and considering the circumstances surrounding his first year as a head coach, hard to imagine anybody could have come out better than 6-6.
And it was that class and what they have done here at Ohio State over the years defensively that had Urban Meyer retain Luke Fickell as his co-defensive coordinator going into next year. Had a conversation with Coach Meyer yesterday, and he said, I've done it in all my stops before. If it's a good person and a good coach, I want him around on my staff.
Drew Basel will kick it off, and the speedy Jeff Demps is deep for the Gators. And the ball goes out of bounds inside the 1-yard line. Tough break for Ohio State as they tried to pin Demps in the corner. And now the Gators will be able to take it all the way out to the 40-yard line. This is John Brantley, the senior from Ocala, threw for 1,912 yards this year, 10 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. 3 of those came in the first 5 possessions of his last game against Florida State.
And Florida State was just a disastrous day for this offense. The defense played well. held the Seminoles to 95 yards of total offense. All 21 points in that game, though, came off of Florida turnovers.
Yeah, the defense was brilliant. The offense gave him no help whatsoever. Charlie Weiss was the offensive coordinator of this club this year as they made the transition to the NFL Pro set, but Charlie Weiss is gone, becoming the head coach at Kansas. Rainey moves back into the backfield. Brantley looks his way and throws to him. Rainey, with blazing speed, will pick up about 8 yards to the 48-yard line. Let's take a look at today's impact players, brought to you by Chick-fil-A.
Well, we've already seen one of the impact players in Chris Rainey. Had a couple ankle injuries between Rainey and Demps. They're 100%. Jay Howard needs to step up his game at defensive tackle, as well as Jonathan Bostic. He'll be key. Bostic against Braxton Miller, the quarterback from Ohio State. They run a lot of quarterback design runs, so that middle linebacker spot key for Will Muschamp and his defense.
Out of the eye this time. Draw. Rainey. First down and more. Had a hip injury against Florida State. Looks like he's over that. Got a good block from Alajazian, who's starting at the left tackle. They're really changed around. Both of these offensive lines have switched guys all over the place.
And Florida went back basically to training camp, getting ready for this bowl. And Matt Patchen, who was a starter at right tackle, is out. So Chaz Green bumps over, and Alajazian, who has not played tackle since high school, moves out to the left side at tackle.
Hunter Joyner, number 41, in at fullback. Instead, they throw to the sideline, and that one's complete to Deontay Thompson. This is a very inexperienced wide receiver core, and that doesn't help Brantley very much either.
And Brantley, a guy who's been banged around with this offensive line, going through all of the changes. There's one down around his leg by Ryan Shazier. And remember, it was that high ankle sprain that knocked him out the middle part of the season. Suffered it against Alabama.
Good opening drive so far for the Gators. They have reached the Ohio State 32. Jeff Demps in for the first time. He's number 28, and Demps trying to get to the outside and just tripped up. What a tackle by Sabino. Etienne Sabino saved what could have been a very big game.
And we expect to see a little more of this Wildcat formation with Trey Burton in there. Talk to Brian White. You mentioned that Charlie Weiss has moved on to be the head coach at Kansas. So Brian White takes over as the offensive coordinator. And talking to him earlier this week, he said, you know, Trey Burton's a big, smooth athlete. I think we're going to be seeing him a lot more in that Wildcat formation today.
Much more Tebow-like than Brantley. Gives it off to Demps again. And so far, the Florida offensive line is having its way with Ohio State's defense. Bradley Roby up from the corner had to make that stop.
And for the University of Florida, Brian White is the interim offensive coordinator. And here's a guy with 10 years of experience. He called plays for Barry Alvarez at Wisconsin for 8 years. So has a background in a power running game, which is what Will Muschamp wants. He doesn't want the spread. They're going to run some of that Wildcat because that's what this team knows. But as they go forward, it's going to become a power running team here at Florida.
Brantley, look out from behind. Is it a fumble or incomplete? Ruled incomplete. Adam Bellamy, number 93, had pressure.
And then
Ohio State stands up on defense.
Well, we've been talking about Alajazian. He went to do a cut block that time against Bellamy. Bellamy did a wonderful job of using his hands and knocking Alajazian to the ground. But Alajazian, who'd been a backup guard throughout the year, getting his first start, and he never played left tackle, even in high school.
After further review, the ball was fumbled and recovered by Ohio State at the 26-yard line. First down.
I don't see how you overturn that one. I really don't. It was too close to call, I think, on the fumble or the throw. Plus, it did not happen. The recovery was not done in the immediate action after the play. A huge call going Ohio State's way.
Couldn't agree with you more.
And that's such a tough call for an official when it's real time like that to know if the ball came out or not. But I don't think
isn't that why we have replay?
Yeah.
When the calls are that close, to be able to go back and look at it from 6 different angles in super slow motion.
Yeah. But I'm a little shocked that that was overturned. I think they should have let that stand.
Well, Ohio State's got to be happy with the decision. And they'll send out Braxton Miller, the freshman who threw for less than 1,000 yards but rushed for 695, and his legs are what got him this position on the Ohio State ball club. Boom Herron will take it out shy of the 30 as he picks up a couple.
And Herron, a young man who was suspended for the first 6 games of the season, the first 5, of course, for trading memorabilia for tattoos, and then he got an additional game tacked on when it was found out that he did less work than he should have for a job over the summer. But his teammates voted him the MVP of the year because of how hard he worked.
Herron into Gator territory for the first time. Deontay Saunders made a tackle. Let's take a look at today's impact players, brought to you by Chick-fil-A. Ed.
Braxton Miller, of course, the young man that they brought in after game 4 to be the starter, starting to grow in the passing game. A good runner. Dan Herron, already mentioned, was voted the MVP of the team because of the leadership he brought. John Simon, first team all Big Ten, leads the team in sacks. And C.J. Barnett will have a very busy day. Expect Demps and Rainey to move all over the field, and that safety who leads the team in tackles will mirror them.
Posey and Brown, the wide receivers, to the near side. Power football. Herron straight up the middle. 12 yards for Boom Herron, the number 10 all-time rusher in the history of Ohio State football.
University of Florida is missing Dominique Easley, an inside defensive tackle who blew out his knee against Florida State. And he was missed there. Easley was starting to play very well at a high level. And that time, Bostic, the middle linebacker, got popped by the fullback, number 44, Zach Boren. And if you like fullback play, check out 44. Pretty good one.
Every tackle so far has been made by a member of the Florida secondary. That is not a good sign. Miller forced out of the pocket, and down he goes. That time, the Gator front wall applied some pressure. Sharif Floyd, the 295-pound sophomore, after William Green forced him up in the pocket.
Floyd goes down inside, and they run a stunt. Both the defensive tackles and the defensive ends switch responsibilities. Floyd did a good job of turning his shoulders and getting skinny, which is hard to do for a 295-pound man, but that's what you do when you make that move to the side. You turn your shoulders. It makes it hard for the offensive line to get their hands on you.
And they need to generate pressure with the front 4 against Miller. And you can chalk that one up to the secondary. They dropped 7, rushed 4. There was good protection initially, but Miller couldn't find anybody, even though he had all day, and they finally got there.
And this is where a young quarterback harms you, because you were starting to get into field goal range for Drew Basil, and now you start going backwards. He needs to just get out of the pocket and throw this one away, Mike, because you're exactly right. There was just nobody in white open. So find yourself some space and throw that one into the stands.
This takes them all the way back to the 45-yard line, and it's 3rd and 18. Floyd already with 1.5 sacks in this game. 4-man rush again. Quarterback draw. Very conservative call that'll pick up about 3.
And I think the fear here by Jim Bowman, the offensive coordinator for Ohio State, was, hey, I've already seen this guy be a little shaky in the pocket. Let's not have a turnover. But a good stop for Florida defensively.
But when you have a quarterback that only has a 50% completion rate, which in this day and age is very low, and he's already been chased around in the pocket twice, 3rd and 18, the call is not to let him take a 7-step drop and do it again.
And, you know, Jim Bowman has taken some heat for his conservative play calling this year, but that one I agree with. You don't want to turn the ball over early in the game. Play a little field position.
Buchanan hangs one high, trying to kill it inside the 5, almost, but it makes the end zone. 42-yard punt. There's a timeout on the field. 0-0 here in Jacksonville. Leonard and Hines are on a 2 tight end set, and they gave it to Joyer And Jonathan Hankins gets the tackle.
And one guy that deserves a mention is longtime Ohio State assistant Jim Haycock. He's the 4th longest tenured coach in the history of Ohio State with 16 years. He'll be moving on. And Haycock, a fine defensive line coach. He's been the defensive coordinator here at Ohio State, but a guy who still is going to go coach, but he is so thankful for his time here at Ohio State. It's rare to get 16 years in this business at any place.
Anywhere. Gators trying to get something started on offense again, and they'll give it to Chris Rainey. This kid only 5'9", 174, gets banged around a lot.
And, you know, for Florida, they've already had a delay of game, and then they had to call a timeout after 2nd down. I think that this is a function of mechanics. Charlie Weiss was the offensive coordinator before he left for Kansas, was down on the field. Now Brian White, who's calling the plays, is up in the booth, and I think they're having a hard time early in this game with some of their play communication.
3rd down, they need to reach just past the 40 to move the sticks. Brantley in trouble, spins out of it, throws. It looks like it's a complete pass, and it is up to the 43-yard line. What an effort by the quarterback. Brantley got it to Andre DeBose. John Simon was putting the pressure on but couldn't finish the deal.
Yeah, and Florida's really struggling at that left tackle position with Matt Patchen out with the injury, having to move a guard who'd never played tackle in college over there. But Brantley, a nice throw and excellent body position by DeBose. It was good coverage by Bryant, but DeBose almost boxed him out like a power forward.
Brantley did a great job of squaring up his shoulders after he got out of trouble to throw that pass. This one flutters out there, and it's incomplete because of the big hit by Bradley Roby. Brantley either had his hand hit or the ball was tipped. That slipped out of there somehow.
And the offensive line for Florida right now is not playing very well. Ohio State's defensive line, that time it was Bellamy again. Remember, he was the guy who got pressure earlier. Right now, the guys in the white shirts are beating the guys in the blue shirts every time Florida drops back to pass.
And offense was not the Gators' strength this year. It was not Ohio State's strength. Both leaned on their defenses heavily. Brantley quickly to his tight end A.C. Leonard. This kid's 6'4", 244 pounds. And he's one of those guys who was very grateful that they went to an NFL style because he would have very little role in the traditional spread offense.
And with A.C. Leonard and Jordan Reed, just a sophomore at tight end. Whoever becomes the offensive coordinator, Will Muschamp is in the process of looking at offensive coordinators. Of course, Brian White, somebody that he may keep around, but they are going to keep this exact offense. Whoever comes in is going to have to learn this offense, not bring his own to the table. They want some continuity.
4-man rush, good protection this time. Brantley, a strike, a perfect throw to Chris Rainey. Rainey, in addition to being their leading rusher, is tied for the lead in the receiving with a tight end Jordan Reed. That was a gain of 20. Rainey split his time last year between wide receiver and running back, so he's good at this.
And the whole key here, you mentioned it's an accurate throw, but it's thrown right on time as Rainey is running between the nickelback and the linebacker. Brantley fires it in there early. If you wait on that ball, that window closes. So not only an accurate throw, but a timely one as well.
First down from the 33. Rainey, little stutter step, gets back to the line of scrimmage and struggles forward for maybe a yard.
Chris Rainey, the ball carrier.
It's a great start for Brantley, especially with the what have to be haunting memories of his last game.
And a guy who struggled last year, was really a square peg in a round hole. He is not a spread quarterback. And of course, just like in coaching, you want to be the guy that follows the guy. Yeah. Well, unfortunately for Brantley, he's a drop back quarterback who came into a Tim Tebow built system and had his struggles, but this system fits him way better.
Rainey bursts through the hole and looks to have enough for a first down. Shazier made the stop.
And this is something that Brian White needs to see get going. Nice blocking by Florida. You saw them cover up all of the white jerseys. You know, blocking a lot of times is not about knocking guys all over the field. It's about getting your body square on the defensive player. And Brian White, who coaches the running backs, that's what the running back wants to see. Get bodies in front of the white shirts and let me cut off of them.
First down at the 22-yard line. Play action fake to Rainey, and then Rainey's out in the pattern. He was wide open. Brantley didn't see him. Instead tried to throw deep, but didn't have much of a chance as Simon drilled him. And look at all the Gators still on the ground. John Brantley, the starting quarterback, was also injured. He banged his right arm, but he's staying out there. And why not? Brantley's off to a hot start. 7 out of 9, 65 yards, 6 different receivers so far. Gillislee will get a carry. Last game of the regular season in Gainesville, Brantley was picked off 3 times in the first half by Florida State, but he didn't even make it to the second half because he was sandwiched by the Seminole defense in the second quarter. Left the game, did not return to action, suffered a concussion, and has since gone through that process where you're evaluated until you are symptom-free and allowed to return. Third down here. Four-man rush. Brantley to the end zone. Touchdown, Deontay Thompson. Nice throw by Brantley. Finally got the protection that he'd been struggling to get on this drive, and it's 17 yards for a score.
Nice throw after having that forearm pounded pretty hard. He went over to the sideline when we were at break and was working on his throwing motion. He looked fine, but that was also a nice job of looking off the safety.
And a Florida touchdown.
Now he went to the ground. Jordan Hall deep for Ohio State, and the kickoff boomed into the end zone 8 yards deep. And Herron bursts out across the 40. That's the end of the first quarter at the TaxSlayer.com Gator Bowl. 7-0 Florida over Ohio State. Welcome back to Jacksonville, Florida. 7-0 Florida Gators on top as we start the second quarter. Ohio State has the ball at its own 41-yard line. Boom Herron. Can't shake the tackle. Good effort by Deontay Saunders, who came up from his safety spot as the extra man in the box. So far, 10 rushes. They have not thrown the ball, although Braxton Miller has dropped a pass a couple of times, hasn't been able to find anybody and chased.
And you wonder why number 26, the safety, is that close to the line of scrimmage.
He saw the same stats.
Yes, he did.
Miller play action, chase from behind. It's a screen. They got it to the tight end Hireman. So the first time they complete a pass, it's a throwback screen to the third string tight end Jeff Hireman. He goes 26 yards, and Stoneburner, their outstanding starter at that spot, unable to play today.
Stoneburner with arthroscopic knee surgery after the Michigan game. They expected him to be able to play, but this Hireman young man, a true freshman, they expect big things. But a good job by Braxton Miller. He had pressure coming in his face, well set up, and right in Riggs right there, but he was able to jump and make an accurate throw to Hireman.
Miller play action, wants to throw again, and completes this one to the sideline to DeVere Posey, his biggest threat. For the most part, Jordan Hall gets a carry for Ohio State. And for this offense going forward, Braxton Miller is going to have to prove he can throw the ball. to take some of the pressure off those running backs.
And if they continue to get blocking like this and even front, so the center, Brewster, is uncovered, does a really nice job going up and fitting on the linebacker, and Brewster making his 49th career start. All Big Ten guy, better get ready for the combine to get poked and prodded by all those NFL scouts.
Hall remains in at tailback, and he'll get the carry. Lowers his shoulder and pounds inside the 10 to about the 8-yard line. Muhort threw him a good block inside to open up some running room.
If you have watched Ohio State for any length of time over the last 10 years, you have seen that play probably 50,000 times, where the backside guard, Muhort pulls through. It's just a power play, and it's something that Jim Tressel brought with him from Youngstown State, and Jim Bowman, the offensive coordinator, offensive line coach, continues at least until next year.
Yes, exactly. Because you know Urban Meyer is going to install his offense, and it probably is not going to have that play in it. Braxton Miller for a couple. 30 of their last 33 possessions. The others, they didn't try to score. They took a knee. So inside the red zone, they score each and every time that they try.
And, you know, it's funny when you talk to Will Muschamp on the other side, he talks about this red zone, their struggles because they can't run the ball. Well, when you have Braxton Miller and the ability of your quarterback to run, you get a lot more efficient in the red zone, where throwing the ball becomes difficult because you don't have the vertical stretch of the middle of the field.
Miller coming off of arguably his best game against Michigan. Looks for the end zone, throws complete, touchdown to Posey. That was a nice throw and a nice catch by Posey on a bullet. Three passes in the first half, but he's completed all of them. That one for a touchdown, and now Basil will come on for the point after. First two drives, Ohio State did not get off the pass. On that one, Braxton Miller was 3 for 3. We're tied at 7 in Jacksonville. 7-7 second quarter. Let's take a look at our expert breakdown, brought to you by Farmers Insurance.
One of the growth processes we've seen from Braxton Miller is his recognition and how quickly he gets the ball out. He sees one-on-one on the outside with Posey being covered by Purifoy, who runs a slant, and he threw it right on time. And you know, I was studying the tape against Michigan, and Braxton Miller, he's still working on some accuracy issues. The ball doesn't always come out very crisply out of his hands. However, you can tell this young man has been doing his homework. His preparation has gotten better. The ball comes out quickly when he sees what he wants. That time, a nice route by Posey.
Basil to kick to DeBose and Temps. Temps back to the 1. Kick can fly. So long. 99 yards. Andre DeBose. Untouched the length of the field. You can't teach speed.
But you can recruit it.
Yes, you can, and they always have. Always had guys who could fly.
And Ohio State fans should blame Urban Meyer for that one. That's one of his guys.
Sturgis for the point after. He is perfect this year on PATs. And the Gators get the lead right back.
You get the kick-out block. Look at the Ohio State players. They got walled off to the inside and not taking anything away from Andre DeBose. But this one is helmet stickers all the way around for his return team.
Hunter Joyer, who was a fullback, got the key block on that one and opened the lane.
It was blocked so well. Jeff Demps who became the lead blocker, became the king of the parade down the sideline. He didn't even have to clean up anybody from Ohio State.
It is a Gator Bowl record 99-yard kickoff return. A record that has stood since 1982. It was 95 yards. When coaches have too much time on their hands, they come up with a bunch of tricky stuff. Jordan Hall with a running start at the 7. And the Gators do a much better job on special teams and take him down at the 22. First and 10 from the 32. Planned run for Miller. Boy, lowered his head. Braxton Miller, Luchez Purifoy was waiting in his path, and Miller said, hey, I'm 6'3", 210. I'm going to go get you. You look about 180.
And one of the things that they've done as the season has gone on is start to get to more quarterback design runs. Of course, earlier in the year, Joe Bozerman was the starter, not much of a runner, more of a pocket passer. And in the last 5 games, he has exploded 100 yards in 3 of the last 4, including 100 against Michigan.
Hyde. Of course, it's always that fine line when you have a running quarterback who's not a Tim Tebow, 245 pounds, who's not a tank playing quarterback, is how much do you run him? How much do you risk him being injured?
And I think a lot of that will have to do with once Urban Meyer gets his hands and Tom Herman, the new offensive coordinator, gets his hands on Braxton Miller. He does have a little ways to go in the passing game. He's starting to see the field better. The ball comes out quickly. He's got a little bit of an accuracy issue they're going to have to work on, but you're right. They're going to have to find the balance for sure.
Used 3 tailbacks in this game. Herron is back in for Ohio State, down to the 45. Now for today's Aflac trivia question. Who was the head coach of the Gators the last time they had a losing season? Remember, they're 6-6 in this ball game. Both clubs are, and nobody wants to finish 6-7, certainly considering the proud heritage of both of these universities. Herron on the toss. And a nice block out in front, Mike Brewster.
This is something in the last 20-25 years you've started to see more of, is the center pulling. Well, I circled the wrong guy. I was a center. You think I'd circle the right guy. But nice job by Brewster. He clears, comes up. That's the second time we've seen him go head-to-head against Bostic, the middle linebacker. Guy who's got a nice future at the next level. And, of course, he's been coached very well by Jim Bowman over the last 4 years.
Got to be an athlete to do that, don't you?
That's why I never pull.
They'll give it on the end around. And that's Posey. He's taken down by Bostic.
And this was a wonderful job by Bostic. It's all about recognition. See where his eyes are? He's looking at that motion and he just reads it. That, you know what? That's film study. You get the extra practices getting ready for a bowl game. Bostic did a fine job that time, knew exactly it was coming back the other way.
2nd and 16. Two tight end formation. They'll shift them both to the wide side of the field. Miller screen. Herron breaks the tackle. Herron will be about 4 yards shy of the first down. So we've seen them do that a couple of times in a long yardage situation. They don't want to subject Miller to the kind of pressure of a straight drop back. They go with a screen.
And Jim Bowman, I thought, called a wonderful game against Michigan. A guy who will not be retained by Urban Meyer and the new staff, but the offensive line coach, offensive coordinator, of course, when Jim Tressel stepped down, he was the play caller. But Bowman stepped up into that position, and I think he's called a couple of really nice games here at the end of his tenure at Ohio State.
Big play here, 3rd and 4. And Miller will give it to the tailback, Jordan Hall. And Hall had forward progress and then forced back. But he's got enough for a first down.
You know, I had a conversation yesterday with Urban Meyer about this program, and of course a lot of Florida fans a little stung that he came out of retirement to take this job, but he said, you know, if it wasn't Ohio State, which is where I'm from, my wife's from, it's where I started my career, I wouldn't take it. And he said the best part is I'm getting a job at a program that is not broken. You know, this is a program that's ready to win championships, although they can't do it next year because of the NCAA penalties, but still on solid ground.
Miller had a man wide open. Posey in the corner of the end zone, and he missed him by a mile. He drilled that pass, and he didn't have to.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Mike. You don't have to fire that ball. You don't have to throw what's called a buzz throw, meaning the ball never gets more than about 10, 12 feet off the ground. Put a little air. It's a post to a corner. The defender had slipped and fallen. And Miller, who overthrew receivers a couple of times for touchdowns in that Michigan game, misses again.
And Posey had missed most of the year with an injury back, and he is certainly their most dangerous receiver. Miller on the draw to Hall.
And that's one of the things that you, with young quarterbacks, always trying to throw the perfect ball. It's so hard sometimes to get a young man to realize the best ball you can throw is an underthrow. Because when you overthrow it, it's like a putt that comes up short. It never goes in.
3rd and 6. Miller under pressure. What a great move by Jay Howard. That's the nose man, 6'3", 303. Did you see how quick he was?
I think Howard knew the snap count. Watch how quickly he gets off the ball. Yep, he knew it. He got a tip because he got out of his stance before Andrew Norwell, the left guard, did. And Howard, a guy, in talking to Dan Quinn, the defensive line coach and defensive coordinator, had said that he had the best bowl preparation of any of our linemen. Of course, he's having to step up with Dominique Easley. What a great get-off.
He was also being held, and that didn't make any difference either. Now Drew Basel forced back to 47 yards out. It's got a chance. And Basel from 47, which ties his longest field goal this season. Well, it was certainly an interesting first half. The Florida Gators run 5 plays in the entire quarter, do not get a first down, and yet they are winning 14-10 over Ohio State. Interesting, huh? Here's Janine with Luke Fickell.
Luke, it seemed like when Florida ran that kickoff return all the way back for the touchdown, it kind of was a little deflating for your guys. How do you think they affected them?
Well, I think they came back and played it pretty well. So, just some things we got to get shored up. That's the things. Just some guys out, some of our really good special teams guys that are out, and somebody else got to step up.
Now, it's very windy here today, and we've seen a couple of throws from Miller that were a little off target. How will that impact the offensive play calling in the second half?
Nothing. We're still going to be aggressive. We still got to do what we're going to do. We got to be able to throw the football.
Thanks, Luke.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Janine. At the half, our score, Florida 14, Ohio State 10. Ryan Burr and company will be in the studio right after these messages. Welcome back to the TaxSlayer.com Gator Bowl. And it's 14-10 at the half. And welcome back to Jacksonville, Florida on a beautiful afternoon for college football. Ed Cunningham, what do you think the kind of adjustments that you're looking for each ball club?
I think for Ohio State, go back to the run. Braxton Miller having a little trouble with his accuracy. Dan Herron's averaging 7.5 yards per carry. Why not just keep riding that horse? And then for Florida, I don't think you want to call too many drop back passes. That offensive line that came in thin, had some guys moved around, looked awfully shaky in the 5- and 7-step drop game, which I know is Brantley's bread and butter, but I'm not so sure I'd dial too many of those up in the second half.
He got pounded early, and protection got a little better as the game wore on. Ohio State will get it first. Sturgis to kick. Jordan Hall on the bounce from the 3. Nowhere to go, penned in at the sideline and knocked out inside the 20-yard line. Miller throws to the blocking back, Boren, who caught only 5 passes all year long. That's the kind of thing you'll see in bowl games when guys have a chance to work on additional things.
And Boren, a young man, when we were talking to the Ohio State coaches, does so much for this offense. Just a junior, and they'll find a spot for this guy in that spread offense. You know, the one thing I think Urban Meyer has always done when he gets to a new place is figure out, if I've got some good players, I'll use them. Not just a blocker, he can move in space.
Second down and about 2. Ohio State in its initial second half possession. Herron. First down just crosses midfield. Let's go to the sideline and Janine Edwards.
Well, Mike, you guys were just talking about Ohio State and the juniors, and earlier you had mentioned the fact that with the NCAA sanctions that were handed down on December 20th, they will not have a bowl game next year. There are 28 juniors and seniors on the Ohio State 2 team for today's game. 28 guys playing in their last bowl game. And I spoke to a couple of the juniors before the game, and they said, you know what, we're just focused on today, but mostly this win takes on even more importance if we can get it, because there won't be a next year.
It's a great point, Janine, and it had to be very disappointing for them knowing they're not going to have that extra opportunity. Miller underneath Hall. Outside of that one scoring strike that Miller threw, about the only effective things that they've done has been in the swing and screen area.
And that's one thing with a young quarterback. Just give him some confidence. His accuracy is going to need some work. We've seen him overthrow. He had some overthrows against Michigan, but you get those easy throws, get him in a rhythm.
It's out in the flat to Posey for a short gain. Back near the original line of scrimmage.
And in one thing, in fairness to Braxton Miller, is when you have a guy like DeVere Posey who was out the first 10 ball games for 2 different suspensions, first for trading his memorabilia for tattoos and then for a summer job where he didn't do enough work for his pay. It's the timing. And Posey, the best receiver, comes back with 2 games to go. So Miller just now starting to get used to having Posey running routes.
Sure. Third and long. Miller under pressure, and they got him again. Back at the 44-yard line. Josh Evans, one of the safeties.
Well, this one by Dan Quinn, the defensive coordinator. Watch 1, 2, 3, 4 against 3 blockers up front. They outnumbered that side. And the back on that side came over. That was actually a mental error by the right side of the offensive line. With a back on that side, they should have had enough to pick it up. But I think there was confusion on that offensive front for Ohio State.
That is the 5th Florida sack, and the Gators come after it, and they get it. Block kick, and the Florida Gators are going to score. Chris Rainey got the block. It's a 15-yard touchdown return. The second huge special teams play. Graham Stewart gets the touchdown. Number 55 scooped it up and went for 6 after Rainey used his speed to get the block. Special teams has lifted the Gators and killed Ohio State so far. Six career blocks for Rainey. (21-10) Gators on the strength of special teams.
Well, and Rainey, you mentioned the 6 career blocks. He's got world-class speed. Here he is right here. But watch as he gets to the second line. Another error by Ohio State. You can see two guys are blocking one. Boren should have the man coming there, and that's the freshman Jeff Hireman, who should have bounced out and picked up Rainey. And so you've got two blocking one. Nobody blocks number one, and he comes in and takes it right off the foot of the punter.
If Rainey doesn't block it, Patton does, coming from the other side in the same technique. Two guys putting pressure on the outside blocker. That was very well designed.
Well, I know who's the faster of the two.
Rainey and Demps are faster than anybody. Hall, a couple of yards deep. Runs into a man, bounces off. The guy he ran into was Patton, that was involved in that punt block. Now Ohio State down a couple of scores. Rarely is it going to change their character, however. They're going to play with the strengths that they have on offense, which is the power game. Interesting thing about Miller, he's been sacked a half a dozen times in this game. Sometimes good running quarterbacks are not good getting away from pressure.
He does like to stay in the pocket a lot, and I think, you know, with his speed, something they can work on is, hey, when it breaks down, get out of the way of all those bodies, because watch how often Braxton Miller stays in the pocket. There, he's in the middle, steps up, and you can't be mad about that. This one, he got outside of it, but the coverage was excellent. And this one was an option where Bostic read it perfectly, but look at all of those bodies.
And haven't moved it very well. Hyde. Let's go to Janine Edwards.
Well, Mike and Ed, that is just the exact type of physicality that linebackers coach Mike Vrabel has wanted to see from his defense all day. And I can tell you that he gave them a speech and a half before they took to the field for that series. He said, guys, I am not going to let you embarrass this team. Those were his words. You are not going to send us home like a bunch of, and he used a word I can't repeat on the air, but he basically said, get your play right, get your heads in the game. He was livid.
Janine, he was one of my favorite players in college, one of my favorite players in the pros. He was just somebody, if he gets guys to play like he did, 100% every play, he's going to be extremely successful.
And he's a guy that Urban Meyer will retain in his same position. And because Vrabel did not have a whole lot of coaching experience, Urban did a little background check and actually called Bill Belichick of the New England Patriots to see what type of guy he was and if he thought he could be a good coach, and all reports came back strong. And that's one thing Urban Meyer's done at every single stop. Kept Tim Beckman at Bowling Green, kept Kyle Whittingham at Utah, and kept Charlie Strong at Florida, now keeping most of his defensive staff intact from the Ohio State team here.
Of course, he's going to keep Luke Fickell as the co-offensive or the co-defensive coordinator. Posey lost it after he caught it. The Gators have it. Now they lost it, and Florida finally gets it back. Josh Evans. Holy cow, what a play. Everybody had a shot at it. That was a good throw by Miller, and Posey just lost it.
Second perfectly thrown and timed slant to Posey, and Posey just couldn't put it away and lock it in.
Looked like Purifoy was the guy who knocked it away. Luchez Purifoy just reached in, and then it's up for grabs. Another exchange of turnovers at the Gator Bowl. Tim Tebow was from the Jacksonville area, had a great career at Florida, now of course playing for the Denver Broncos. And I think a perfect example of somebody who is saying to the world, I have a dream and nobody's going to steal it from me. I at least have a shot at this. Brantley wide open. Complete inside the 30-yard line on a perfect throw, and it was the third-string tight end Amarius Hines for 31 yards.
And let's go back to that fumble, and I don't want to take away anything from Purifoy, but this should not be a fumble. He's reaching to make the tackle. He wasn't even going to rake the ball out, but you hear that term high and tight. That ball was being carried low and loose.
Low and loose. Gators already in scoring territory. Burton in the Wildcat. Gives off to Demps. Demps will pick up 2, maybe 3. They cannot get a first down. The starting spot was just inside the 10-yard line.
You know, this is where with a guy like Trey Burton, you can do so many different things. And you had mentioned earlier, he hasn't thrown it much. So maybe this is a chance, even though Brantley's in there, if you go to a Wildcat, maybe they could pull out, dust off the old jump pass that they used to use with number 15.
Demps to the left of the quarterback. Rainey to the right. Read option, Rainey. Inside the 5. That'll be the last play of the third quarter here at the TaxSlayer.com Gator Bowl in Jacksonville, Florida. The Gators in control and driving for more. To the goal line, Gillislee, and he's just inches short.
Has anybody hit harder in this game than Sabino? Wow. That looked like it was a walk-in touchdown until number 6 came. And I think you kick this. I think you go up 14 here. I don't see the upside if you miss. And they're going to get some boos, but I think strategically this is the right decision.
The only thing I'm thinking is if you don't make it, Ohio State's got to start from the 1-foot line.
Fair point.
And they haven't moved the ball except once all game.
Yeah, fair point. But we did show his resume earlier, which with all that defense in his background, I think he feels pretty good about 14.
Sturgis for the chip shot. And that does make it a 2-touchdown lead for the Gators with 14:09 left to go from Jacksonville, Florida. Stay with us. Attendance today at the Gator Bowl, 61,312 on a beautiful day. Jordan Hall deep for the kickoff. Ohio State has to get something going. Hall tries to spin out of a tackle, but can only get back to the 20. Miller under pressure, got away this time. Flag is down. Somebody may have gotten a piece of his face mask. And it looked like Matt Elam, who's had a big game, reached up too high.
It's the second time Elam has come
Personal
on
foul,
place.
grabbing the face mask by number 22 of the defense. It's a 15-yard penalty.
First time he just beat the block. This time he came unblocked. And one thing that Braxton Miller does very well is he sets guys that are running free up. Good call by the referee. Have a mixed Mountain West Big 12 crew with us today. But the one thing Braxton Miller I've really been impressed with, whenever protection breaks down and it's one guy, he freezes him. He just stands there and then he moves quickly. He doesn't panic. He stays calm. And you've seen him time and time again this year make a free guy miss just like that.
Pretty good move for a kid who's 6'3", 210. He's got some excellent shiftiness and quickness about him. They'll run the option here. He keeps. And it's across the 35 to about the 38-yard line.
And I think what you have to do if you're Jim Bowman, the offensive coordinator and the offensive staff for Ohio State, is I think you have to keep these type of runs in. But then eventually they have a play action pass off of that option. And you saw a couple times against Michigan State, you have Corey Brown back from an ankle injury, very explosive. Devere Posey we've seen come free.
Right.
I think at some point you have to try to take the top off the defense down 2 scores.
Well, you said eventually is right around the corner. There's 13:21 to go in this game, and Hall on a little flanker screen, and Jonathan Bostic saw it coming and got in the backfield the same time the ball got there.
Well, the problem you have with a screen is you have an offensive lineman in Mike Adams who's going to try to get out and get the block on Bostic, but Bostic read that right away, and they had seen that play before.
Exactly.
So, you know, if you're Jim Bowman, I think you got to scratch that one out, because you're right. You're getting to a time where the plays that aren't working got to go, and you got to start stretching the field a little bit.
That's the 10th play of the game that has resulted in a loss of yards for Ohio State. Miller floats this one too high for Posey. And the Buckeyes will send on the punt team. If you can't throw the ball, eventually you get in a position like this where you're down a couple of scores, the other team is playing the run, and if you can't you don't have a chance to come back.
Well, and you're not going to pop too many big runs against Florida. They've been pretty solid all year, and with the speed they have on the back end, even if you break one, you're looking at 15, 20 yards, not an 80-yard touchdown.
Rainey and Saunders are back. Buchanan to kick. High, and he'll let it go. And it will roll dead at the 31-yard line with only 4 minutes and 50 seconds to go in this game. A kick of 50 yards, but the Gators did one thing they needed to do. They didn't fumble it away. Boy, all those boats were out on the water the other night for the fireworks display, which was spectacular downtown. Tradition they have here on New Year's Eve.
Woke me up out of my slumber. I didn't quite make it to midnight.
Jeez, come on. Gators will go into full clock killing mode right now. Let's take a look at today's quarterback spotlight, brought to you by Dove Men Plus Care.
And it looking like John Brantley is going to go out a winner. And Braxton Miller, he was efficient, although didn't hit any long balls, which obviously are going to be the problem here in the fourth quarter. But for John Brantley, you have to feel good about a young man. He came in following Tim Tebow, did not fit the offense, just got beat to death by some of the fans when he was struggling last year. Started out the year, was playing well, played great in that first half against Alabama before he got hurt. And looks like he's going to go out a winner.
Gillisley. All they're trying to do is stay in bounds and keep the clock running. Ohio State has its full complement of timeouts. But to make those usable, you've got to stop somebody on defense.
And this, we remember, was the time on the last drive where Jim Haycock dialed up a blitz on about a third medium. So how do you beat that? Sometimes you run a draw and the blitz will run right by it.
Gators have been very good using up the clock here with 3.5 minutes and counting. Brantley out of the eye. He's going to give it to Gillisley, and Gillisley stopped short. And now Ohio State will use its first timeout. Jonathan Hankins made the stop. He's the second leading tackler on this ball club. So they stop it at the 3:16 mark. That was pretty much a remarkable transition this year, because that defense at best was inept the last couple of years before this one. And Ohio State right now needs a miracle. Miller over the middle and has the pass complete to Chris Fields, his first catch. Fields caught 7 balls during the regular season.
And not their strong suit, obviously, for Ohio State when your leading receiver has 14 catches. It's been a tough year in the throwing game.
Miller again goes underneath to Hyde, and Hyde will pick up a few across the 30. But Florida is content to give them any one of these they want to throw, because it will eat up so much time. Miller floats this one to Heron. Heron belted, won't go down, turns around, does not get out of bounds, and Matt Elam ran into him twice, and we'll check in with Janine Edwards.
Well, Mike, one guy that the Buckeyes certainly have missed on the field this afternoon is their starting tight end, Jake Stoneburner. He is their co-leading receiver for the year, but he had arthroscopic knee surgery last month, and he's told me, he said, I tried to get back for this game. I really wanted to play in it because I'm a junior, and this would have been my last bowl game, but I just couldn't do it. And he said that it's a shame that the Buckeyes are going to go out here with a losing record for the season.
Miller throws a jump ball. That one's going to be caught at the 27-yard line by Devin Smith. And that's exactly what you talked about. Give your guy a chance to make a play.
The offensive player almost always gets his eyes back on the ball before the defensive player. It's actually the way the defense knows to start looking for the ball is when the offensive player finds it. So if you underthrow it, your guy has the advantage.
Underneath again to Devin Smith.
And going back to Jake Stoneburner, being a junior, not being able to play in a bowl because of NCAA sanctions last year. You know, Tom Herman, when he got the job, was talking about, hey, don't put us in a box of what type of offense we're going to run. When they get together with their staff, and of course a lot of the staff that is here for Ohio State is going to transition right over into Urban Meyer's staff, and they're going to find a place for Stoneburner, good big physical athlete who can run. So he will find a place in that offense. And Tom Herman was saying, hey, don't just put us in a box and tell us what we're going to be. They're going to find out who they have and what best suits them.
Want to thank our producer Scott Matthews, our director Patrick I almost said Patrick McEnroe, Patrick McManus, and Mark Fredrickson and Dave Dare up here in the booth. You guys have had an exemplary year, and we thank you for all the hard work. Our entire crew. Nobody works harder than the people on this crew to try to bring you the best in college football, and we are deeply grateful for all your efforts. Ohio State with 1:31 left. Miller under pressure gets away. Still looking downfield. Now he runs. Did not get out of bounds and reached the 12-yard line. That's he and Herron have both made the same kind of plays. They could have saved 30 seconds of play by just going the opposite direction.
Yeah, now that you're inside of 2 minutes and the clock does stay stopped out of bounds, that was a freshman mistake.
Their only hope to score here, go for the onside kick, get it back and do it again. Out in the flat to Hall. Hall fighting for yardage. Hall, touchdown. What an effort by Jordan Hall. A little swing. He was left to do it on his own, and he did. 5 different Gators had shots at him.
Right when this ball was thrown, I thought the same thing we've been talking about. Sprint, get out of bounds, but Hall had a different thought. And the Gators not looking so good in the open field there, but Hall been a nice AB to Dan Herron here late in the season.
The point after would make it a 7-point game. Miller was 6 out of 6 for 82 yards and a touchdown on that drive. Florida did accomplish one thing, however. They made them burn up so much of the clock. There's only 57 seconds left. That's why people hate what is always referred to as that prevent defense.
Now, one of the rules in college football, in your alignment for kickoffs, you can't overload one side. You have to have at least 4 guys on either side of the kicker. So what I always think you can do here is make Florida guess which way you're going to go. Don't just immediately show which direction you're going to kick it, so that they have to stay balanced as well on their hands team as they're receiving it.
You don't want to be breaking negative records set
no.
2 centuries
You know, though,
ago.
they should be proud of what they did this year. Under the duress they were under, they should be very proud of how they held together.
Onside kick recovered by the Gators.
And I think Luke Fickell, he got a shot as the interim head coach, took over May 30th after Jim Tressel stepped down as the head coach. He's going to stick around as the co-defensive coordinator. But I think this young man has put himself in a position to be a head coach someday with how he managed this year.
He did it with great class. Stephen Ali was the man who recovered that onside kick to lock this one up. Ohio State has 1 timeout left. But all the Gators really have to do is take a knee.
And guess what these coaches get to do starting tomorrow? Start recruiting again. Yeah. They come out of a dark period, right back on the road to try to get their classes together before National Signing Day in early February.
This is not a 40-hour-a-week job.
No.
For somebody who wants to get into football, you just work constantly.
And we were talking to Will Muschamp yesterday, and I said, so you get to get back and relax? He said, no, I'm going right back out on the road to start recruiting. And, of course, with 2 teams that he will be fighting for recruits against, LSU and Alabama, not playing till January 9th. You want to get out there, and anybody who hasn't quite made their decision yet, start nudging them towards being a Gator. And he said recruiting's been going terrifically well.
Here come a couple of the receivers and the special teams guys who've been plotting this. Well, at least it's 62, 63 degrees today. And the Florida Gators will walk out of home country, Jacksonville, with a 24-17 win over the Buckeyes of Ohio State. Will Muschamp will go to 7-6 on the season. He gets his first victory. They'll have to snap it one more time at another kneel down. This is a great way to start your career, isn't it?
Yep. And they've got a long way to go. He's very clear. Will Muschamp's very clear about how much work they have to do. The numbers are way down. They need to recruit a lot of offensive linemen. A power back would help. But starting out 7-6 and holding together, and you know they had a bunch of games there that could have gone either way. This could have been an 8-4, 9-3 bunch at the end of the regular season. And defensively, I think they'll be there ready to win an SEC championship. Offensively, I'm not quite sure they're going to be there next season.
He's going to have to do it in the toughest conference in college football. Southeastern Conference will have 2 teams playing for a national championship, of course. Our final score here, Florida 24, Ohio State 17. Coming up next, Sports Center. Don't forget at 5 on ESPN, the Rose Bowl. Number 10, Wisconsin. Number 5, Oregon. For live coverage of the TaxSlayer.com Gator Bowl trophy celebration, log on to ESPN3. For Ed Cunningham, Janine Edwards, and our entire crew, this is Mike Patrick saying so long from Jacksonville. Thanks for watching, everybody.